The invasion has begun. Good evening, I'm Guy Benson, sitting in for Kennedy tonight. Russian troops now reportedly on Ukrainian soil again. And President Biden claims he's ready to play hardball. But would that stop Putin at this point? Late last night, Russia's rubber-stamped legislature gave Putin permission to use military force. Shortly thereafter, troops reportedly entered two so-called breakaway territories, claiming to be peacekeepers. It's unclear how many are currently on the ground there, but ominously, Putin has repeatedly said Ukraine isn't even a real or legitimate country. Earlier today, Biden stated what many of us already knew. This is not merely an incursion.
This is the beginning of a Russian invasion of Ukraine. Who in the Lord's name does Putin think gives him the right to declare new so-called countries on territory that belong to his neighbors? We still believe that Russia is poised to go much further in launching a massive military attack against Ukraine. Hope I'm wrong about that. Hope we're wrong about that. But Russia has only escalated its threat against the rest of Ukrainian territory. Russia's moved supplies of blood and medical equipment into position on their border. You don't need blood unless you plan on starting a war.
The address was better written than it was delivered today. The president also laid out a new and tougher round of sanctions that he hopes might change Putin's calculus about launching an even wider war.
We're implementing full blocking sanctions on two large Russian financial institutions, VEB and their military bank. We're implementing comprehensive sanctions on Russian sovereign debt. That means we've cut off Russia's government from Western financing. It can no longer raise money from the West and cannot trade in its new debt on our markets or European markets either. Starting tomorrow and continuing in the days ahead, we'll also impose sanctions on Russia's elites and their family members. They share in the corrupt gains of the Kremlin policies and should share in the pain as well. And because of Russia's actions, we've worked with Germany to ensure Nord Stream 2 will not, as I promised, will not move forward.
Well, at least temporarily. This afternoon, a defiant Ukrainian foreign minister held a press conference with our Secretary of State, vowing that his countrymen have zero intention of surrendering.
No, we do not have such plans. We have two plans. Plan A is to utilize every tool of diplomacy to deter Russia and prevent further escalation. And if that fails, Plan B is to fight for every inch of our land and every city and every village.
So will this devolve into a full-blown war? Or has Vladimir Putin already achieved what he wants, at least for now? Here with me is chairman of the Institute for the Study of War and Fox News senior strategic analyst, General Jack Keane, to discuss. General, it's very good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, delighted to be here, Guy.
Your reaction to the bellicose speech that we heard from Putin yesterday and then President Biden's response today?
Well, I think that speech and also the missive that he published last July in 2021, I think laid out his vision. And he clearly sees what he wants to do is reconstruct the post-Cold War boundaries as they exist in Europe today, and also design a new security architecture. And he resents significantly that after the Soviet Union collapsed, the United States led an expansion of NATO into Eastern Europe, and what he sees at the expense of Russia. So part of his vision and design is to take back Ukraine. He's already got Belarus, and I think if you carry this out to its fullest extension, is to intimidate and certainly threaten NATO as well. So I think that's where he is. The campaign today, by the way, that he's executing, we've got a better focus on it, Guy, and it looks like a deliberate, multi-phase military campaign. Phase one is the occupation that's taking place right now with Russian forces in the breakaway regions. Phase two is likely to move across the line of contact into the two oblast parts of the republic that the Ukrainian military is positioned and deployed to, with some significance, by the way. That would likely result in pre-assault fires, leading a mechanized and armored advance into that part of the Donbass. And I think phase three speculative. He has the option to go further into the east, to the region, to establish a land bridge with Crimea. And then, of course, the one that we're all looking at, and that President Biden mentioned, is still certainly alive in the administration's mind, and that is phase 4 for Biden to has many options to topple the Ukraine government in Kiev, put pressure on them, as well as other cities as well.
Do you think he wants
as part
that?
of a much larger invasion?
At this stage, and I know it's speculation, do you think he wants to take over the whole country and topple the government and occupy Kyiv, or might he be satisfied at this point of taking yet another bite out of Ukraine, then waiting for a while, maybe even years?
I don't think we know for sure. He certainly has put the forces in place and moved them as close to the border as he can without crossing it to do just that, to topple that government and put the pressure on it. He's brought the right kind of units in place to do it, with the logistical infrastructure to deal with it. But certainly, I mean, biting off an occupation of Ukraine, the second largest country in Europe, is a staggeringly ambitious undertaking for him that also has negative results and challenges associated with it.
You mentioned the forces.
Not the least.
Sorry, General, I just want to say, you mentioned these forces. How good are the Russian forces? How dangerous are they? How good is their leadership? Do you think that they have morale up for this particular mission?
Oh, yeah. I've been looking very closely at the videos of them. They're young, they're fit, they're disciplined, their march columns are solid. This is the professionalized part of the Russian military, and they have the best advanced technology that Russia can buy in those organizations. So, yeah, this is an organization that's well organized, well led, well equipped, and it looks to be disciplined. And certainly they'll have the wherewithal to overmatch the Ukrainian military for sure.
How serious?
But he will not defeat the Ukrainian people. That he can defeat the military. The people are not going to go that easily over time. And that's one of the problems with becoming an occupying force. The people will still continue to resist.
That was what we heard from the Ukrainian foreign minister earlier today. Just very briefly, General, how serious are these sanctions and repercussions announced by the West, including our president today, in the scheme of things?
No, they're not serious. And look, I don't believe any amount of sanctions that we issued right now to Putin, or did earlier, or are going to do later, are going to deter him. He has considered all of that. He's absorbed that. He knows what the cost is. He understands what the specific sanctions are on the table. And listen, if you actually believed that sanctions could deter, then why don't you load up all the sanctions that we're going to impose on him, deliver them now, and tell them, as he begins to pull back his forces.
Right, and he didn't. And now is the decision made
as he begins to pull back his forces, then we will dial back the sanctions, if you believe that sanctions is a deterrence. I don't believe they are in this case at all when it deals with Mr. Putin.
Right, we're doing the opposite of what you just suggested there. That seems to be the strategy for now. We will be watching, of course, very closely as this frightening situation plays out. General, really appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Yeah, great talking to you guys.